Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to today's Caffeine for the Soul. And if you enjoy these weekly musings, you'll find out more at michaelneill.org or, of course, by subscribing to this podcast. And I want to begin today by sharing a story. It's an old teaching story, but this is a version of it I wrote for my book, The Inside Out Revolution. Once upon a time, a student traveled far and wide in order to expand his knowledge of the path. Much to his delight, one day he was granted an audience with a noted Zen master. When they sat down together, he shared the many things he'd been studying on his journey. After listening politely for nearly an hour, the master called for tea. As always, the tea was prepared according to an elaborate set of rituals. When it came time to pour, the master himself performed the honors. However, to the student's dismay, the master didn't stop pouring when the teacup was full. He continued to pour the golden liquid until it began spilling over the sides of the cup and onto the saucer. The student didn't want to be so presumptuous as to correct the master, but when the tea began to pour over the edges of the saucer and puddle on the floor, he felt he had no choice. "Excuse me, O venerable one," he said, careful to observe the forms of respect, "but you must stop pouring. The cup is full, it can take on no more tea." "Ah," said the master with a twinkle in his eye. "Like this cup, your mind is full of your own ideas and accumulated learning. If you want to learn something new, first, you must empty your cup." Now, when I used to hear that story and tell that story, I understood it to be a sort of you've got to put down what you know to learn something else. So we've all got lots of theories, but if you want to learn from the masters, you have to put your theories aside and listen to their. And it was basically about replacing what was in my cup, what was on my mind, with what was in someone else's cup, what was on their mind. But over the last, 18 years or so, I've begun to see that very differently. And it began when I was given instruction in listening, and it was suggested that I might do better if I learned to listen with nothing on my mind. And I didn't think I had a lot on my mind until I deliberately started listening with nothing on my mind, and I realized I always had stuff on my mind, either, "Ooh, what do they mean?" Or "What am I going to, how could I best respond to this?" Or, "What's for lunch after I'm done talking to this person?" And to actually listen with nothing on my mind was both more challenging than I expected it to be, but also far more rewarding. Because every time I was able to do it, I felt amazing. And I heard things so far beyond the transcript of the conversation. I started to hear what was really on people's mind, not just the words that they were saying. But then, it is kind of a don't order yet, then I started to realize that any time I had nothing on my mind, I had that same kind of experience of both well-being, just a nice feeling, but also I would start to hear from somewhere inside me beyond my own intellect. I'd start to have insights. I'd start to see fresh. I'd start to see things that were obvious once I saw them, but had been invisible to me up until that point. And I started to realize, and it became almost a catchphrase in my business, the less you have on your mind, the better life gets. The less you have on your mind, the better your relationships. The less you have on your mind, the smarter you become. The less you have on my mind, the less stress you experience. And it mapped onto so many things. And the question that then started to come up again and again in clients and students was, okay, well, if the less we have on our mind, the better life gets. Well, how do I quiet my mind? How do I have less on my mind? And there are really just three things that I've seen that have helped me have less on my mind more of the time, and to begin to experience my own teacup as being filled not from somebody else's wisdom, but from that deeper intelligence that we each have access to inside ourselves. And the first is seeing that having nothing on our mind is our natural state. I sometimes talk in my work about the difference between the state of meditation, which is a state of kind of having nothing really on your mind, or things pass through, but nothing sticks. And that meditation is our natural state, but practicing meditation, meditating, may or may not guide us back to that natural state. Sometimes it gives us more to do and more to think about. So one thing is, when you start to recognize that having nothing on your mind is your natural state, you don't work so hard at it. You realize that kind of in a way, when you stop working, what's left is not much. And there's I remember one of the analogies that came to me once when I was explaining this to somebody was, if I was ridiculously wealthy and, hired you to keep the surface of my swimming pool as calm as possible, so as few ripples on the surface of my swimming pool as possible. And you were like, this is a ridiculous thing, but okay, if he's willing to pay me for it, I want to do a good job. You would eventually come to the point where you realized that the best way to keep the surface of the swimming pool still was to do nothing, because it would naturally return to stillness, no matter how the wind or other forces disrupted it. Whereas trying to dive into the pool or do anything to the pool to still it would just muck it up more. So in the same way, there's nothing we can do to quiet our mind that works faster than doing nothing to quiet our mind, because it will naturally return to empty, to open, to available. We're made to have nothing on our mind. But for me, the biggest game changer was just experimenting with it. And that's what I'm going to encourage you to do. What I started to do was see, is there anywhere that I do better with more on my mind? Or do I always do better with less on my mind? And so I started to play. Okay, let me play with having nothing on my mind while I'm with my kids. Let me play with having nothing on my mind while I'm giving a talk. Let me play with having nothing on my mind for the rest of today and see what happens. And when I've played with this experiment repeatedly, what always happens is I feel better. I sort of fill up with nice feelings. And I just know what to do and seem to kind of find the perfect time in which to do it. So your experiment, if you want an experiment, is play with living your life over the next week with as little on your mind as you can. And see if there are any places that you think, no, here I would really need to have a lot of stuff on my mind. And wherever you feel comfortable doing it, just play with doing those same things, being in those same situations with nothing on your mind, and see what happens. Have fun, learn heaps, happy exploring, and I'll talk with you soon.